We are ready. As you can see, I don't really regard diamond mining as mining. I thought it was only just money laundering. So we give them a slot because we have to, some of them are even friends, and so we had to put up a diamond panel that I thought after lunch on day 2 is probably about the worst I could do. So here we are, 3 people awake. We found 5 diamond miners that aren't in jail. I mean, we're doing well. We're doing so well here. The questions from online and the audience comes to me. And so somewhere when that clock ticks to 0 or thereabouts, I'll come and feed the questions back to you guys. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We are actually quite pleased to have you. This is better than what you did in Botswana, James. So we got 5 diamond miners together. And over to you and your panel. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Bernard, and thank you very much for staying for the afternoon session of day 2 of the Junior Indaba. I think rather tongue-in-cheek that let's not forget that diamonds, along with gold, were the foundation of the industrial economy here in South Africa. And Bernard's comment about Botswana was that I struggled to get another speaker to speak along with me on diamonds, and especially seeing the importance of diamonds in the economy of Botswana. The title of this session, Are Diamonds Forever? I'm actually going to skip that point because I think it's very, very obvious amongst the panelists here today that diamonds are clearly very much forever. And I want to chat on 5 different points, and I'll introduce the esteemed panel momentarily. Obviously, you want to touch on the market because that's something which is not maybe visible to many people, particularly post-COVID, and particularly in the current times we have with the war in Ukraine. I'd like to look at financing on the mine's expansion plans, where they're getting the money from. That subject has come up quite a bit over the day and a half, and I think it'll be very interesting to the panel. Another interesting item which has been raised over the past day and a half are exploration plans, both brown and green fields, and something perhaps which has not come up very much at this Indaba, perhaps rightly so, perhaps not, but has had prominence at the Botswana Resource Sector Conference and the Mining Indaba, is the whole issue around ESG. And I want to explore that particularly in the light of marginal operations. And the final question, which I'd like the panel to debate, is something which is very core to this. It's called the Junior Indaba. And why are there so few juniors, diamond juniors, in the region? So on my panel, I couldn't think of a better grouping of people, leading executives in diamond mining ventures in the region. To my left, I've got Pierre Fourie, who is an executive with Namakwa Diamonds and runs the Cow Mine in Lesotho. To my immediate left here, I've got Richard Duffy, CEO of Petra Diamonds, who has operations in South Africa, probably the largest miner in South Africa, as well as Tanzania. To my right, I have Bruyne, the Chief Operating Officer of Gem Diamonds, also their flagship operations in Lesotho, the Letseng mine. And on my far right here, I have Lyndon de Meillon. I see on there he is a consulting geologist, but he's also a chief executive of an alluvial diamond mine in the Middle Orange River of South Africa, and very involved with the junior diamond mining sector in that region. So if I look at the gentleman here, we've probably got 3 mid-tier companies here. I'm Managing Director Botswana Diamonds PLC, a junior, and probably 2 juniors, but I think that's probably the right balance. So let's start at the top. Let's start at the market itself. And I'm going to ask Brandon this one to kick off with. What has the diamond market been like post-COVID and with the potential uncertainty around Ukraine?
Well, thank you, James. In terms of the market that we've seen since COVID and slightly before COVID, we saw increasing diamond prices. COVID put a bit of a blip on it, but very quickly thereafter, prices started increasing significantly. Our mine in Letseng, we work at the top end of the market, so we sell diamonds that are gem quality, and large stones, plus 10.8 carats make up 80% of our revenue. So, we have focused in that area of the market, and we've certainly seen significant price increases over the years, including last year and into this year. Ukraine is interesting. The impact there, I think, is the sanction and banning of Russian diamonds. So Alrosa, which is one of the major producers of carats and volumes, cannot sell their diamonds into the market. We initially thought that diamonds would find their way in, but I understand that manufacturers have actually been requested by retailers to give written assurance that they have not bought Russian diamonds. Diamonds, as you know, are always sold in dollars, and therefore, all transactions go through the US, and there's very good watch over that. But what has been happening is the Cochrane has been buying the volumes and production from Alrosa to obviously give cash supply to the mines. How long that will last, I don't know. The Cochrane, I understood the other day, forfeited one of their bonds, so they may not have the cash to continue doing it. But certainly we've seen this before in the GFC back in 2008, 2009. The Cochrane did the same thing where they couldn't sell diamonds. Alrosa, the Cochrane bought those diamonds and stockpiled them. And I suppose the only risk to the overall market is when those diamonds come back onto the market. Is it in a controlled manner, or is it going to be in a manner that's going to flood the market? Looking back, the two biggest producers, De Beers and Alrosa, after the global financial crisis, actually did it in a very responsible way and fed those diamonds into the market, which helped the supply and not flood the market. But in the short term, certainly we've seen supply decrease because of Ukraine and the sanction on Russian diamonds, and prices we've seen have certainly increased over the last few months as well.
Now that's very encouraging. I'm just going to ask a follow-up question now to Richard on that. What is, if you put your crystal ball on, what is your group's view on diamond prices going forward?
That's always the million.
This is not going to be an easy panel.
Look, I think the fundamentals structurally are positive for diamonds. So if you look at the supply-demand side, we know that there's limited supply coming on. There are not many projects coming on stream. We've also seen record demand coming out of the US. So I guess the big question is on the demand side. What will the impact of a protracted Ukraine-Russia conflict have on the global economy and global economic growth? But certainly supporting Brandon, we've seen strong pricing. We had a bonanza February tender, and it was just before the invasion, but the prices have continued to trend up. I don't entirely share Brandon's confidence around no Russian diamonds finding their way to the market. I do think that through China and India we do still see goods reaching the market, but certainly a number of retailers are requiring certification. So we are seeing some pullback. In any event, we can't supply 25 million carats of Meillon goods, which is really what Alrosa supplies to the market. So I think fundamentals positive, but some question marks just around global growth, which obviously impacts demand, but in a much better place than we've seen the industry for a while.
Great, thank you, Richard. I'd now like to move on to the financing aspects. So I'm going to cover each in about 5 minutes apiece, because I think that's of particular importance to us at the Junior Indaba. Going forward, obviously, you have to finance mine expansions and you have to finance exploration and new projects. And just a follow-up question with you, Richard. When you look at your mine expansions and your future developments, what's your current thinking in terms of how do you finance them?
So you're speaking to a company that's just been through a pretty sizable capital restructure. So we had a tough 2021 as a result, but having been through that, our capital structure and capital base is pretty healthy currently. So we have a $350 million bond in place, and we've just approved 2 fairly sizable sub-level cave projects, one at Cullinan and one at Finch. I'm just rounding numbers. It's probably in total about $450 million of capital. All of that will be funded internally. So we in the fortunate position of being able to generate sufficient cash to fund that and still, be left with net free cash at the end of it. But we have this bond in place, and we have a revolving credit facility in place, undrawn, of about $60 million.
Could I then ask a follow-up question to Pierre and Lyndon, because you gentlemen are working in the private space, unlike the public space. I'll ask Pierre first. How do you finance your operations, being a private company?
It's also internally. We're fortunate to get the odd nice sized pink stone that takes our profit from $5 million to $20 million a year quickly. So it's generally from those internal funds. It's a little bit like a digger operation, You're just making it, and then the big one comes and you buy another ADT. So yes, we need to also internally fund. The diamond space is not, although it's a luxury good, it competes, I think, with other investments.
Great, thank you. And Lyndon, if you could answer, but perhaps from your own perspective and with your SADPO hat on as well, about how do others in your area finance their mining operations?
Yes, James. The alluvial industry is actually the sort of the black sheep of the resources industry, because nobody really wants to get involved because the risk is too high. The banks will never finance. They've tried and they won't do it. The IDC have burnt their fingers. So it's up to us. We do private financing. We finance all our expenditures ourselves through organic growth and whatever we recover. We build our plants and whatever. But it's people don't always understand it. If I go to the bank and I want to finance a new bulldozer, there's always just 2 pages at the back of this contract which says, your house and your car, everything that you own, that's collateral, So everything that we own is always in the game, which I think is a bit different than if you're a public company.
No, absolutely. Lyndon, if I could kind of follow up with you, maybe putting your consulting geologist hat on at the moment. What's your kind of take on chiefly greenfields and to some extent brownfields diamond exploration? Let me restrict that to South Africa.
Look, in South Africa, I think there's very little greenfields happening at the moment. I think the environment that we operate in is not conducive to investors coming in who wants to invest. Brownfields, from a personal perspective, what we do, we look at, there's a lot of old mines. If I can take myself back 20 years ago, people said to me that the alluvial industry is dying, there's no more resource. But today we are mining the stuff that we thought was unprofitable at that time. Because there's a couple of things that have changed. The rand dollar has changed. The diamond price for our goods especially is completely different. And the economies of scale have changed. We're working on a much bigger scale than we did in the past. So there's a lot of brownfields projects that might have been left in the past that we're actually now taking over and expanding on.
There's a bit like a food chain in a way, that maybe things start with De Beers, go to Petra or Gem, and then end up with people like us.
Absolutely.
Like
our cost structure is probably, I would say, a fifth. It's probably less than that from a De Beers, even a Petra. It's absolutely a lean and mean machine that we run, and you have to, because our grades are ultra low. Kimberlite, you're talking. Gem is probably a 2, maybe, but it's a very special kimberlite. But the rest are 30-40 carats per 100 tons. We're talking 0.15 to 0.2 carats per 100 tons that we're working, but our average value is $3,000 to $4,000 a carat. The highest in the world, by the way, on the Middle Orange River.
Great, thanks Lyndon. Richard, is your group active in diamond exploration in the region?
No. So we're not currently active on the exploration front. We're fortunate enough to have organic growth, brownfields opportunities, particularly at Cullinan and Finch, to also in Tanzania at Williamson. So we're really focusing on that. Having said that, though, we are looking to build and grow a pipeline. You really want to have a pipeline through your near-term feasibility studies and further out to your conceptual and greenfields. But that pipeline's still in the process of being built, and the focus for us is on near-term production or producing assets currently. Industry really hasn't spent a whole lot on exploration for the last decade. If you have a look, it's been really suppressed, which is also why we don't see a lot of new supply coming on. So there could, I think, be an opportunity to increase spend in that area. But for us, that's a little down the road.
I think that's an important point. I think we heard yesterday that it's 0.8%, Paul, if I remember correctly, of global exploration spend is made in South Africa. And according to kind of our sums, probably less than $20 million a year, maybe even less than 10, is being spent on diamond exploration in the region. If I could kind of switch gears a little bit, and Pierre, if you could have a look at this one, and then Lyndon and then Brandon as well, is there was a lot of conversations at the Indaba and at the Botswana Resource Sector Conference, and in the margins of this conference, about the challenges of ESG, call it what you will, environmental social governance, especially in a marginal mining operation. Pierre, you also have the role of being the mine manager. How do you balance that?
It's a bit of a challenge, I must say. We have a small team, and we can't afford expensive consultants in general, but we try and align what we do on the ground with the overall ESG requirements. We chose a framework, I think it's a Diamond Council framework that at least has different requirements based on the size of your operation. So we would have different requirements to meet compared to a De Beers or a Petra. So we found that to work for us. We do work hard on it, we do spend time on it, and we are passionate about it, which helps. Although we focus a lot on efficiency and trying to get a marginal mine profitable, we feel strong about ESG in general.
If I could then ask Brandon, because I know you produce, like Richard, a very thorough sustainability report. Yeah. How important is this aspect to you, being a main London-listed board company?
James, thanks. The ESG, how it's being couched now, I think we've just repackaged it. It's always been a vital and core part of our business, whether it was called HSSE, sustainability, or ESG. So we've had a major focus since inception on governance, our social contributions, and our environment. And I think we make sure that is the core part of any discussion on any new project. We bring in our environment, what is the impact, what are the mitigation factors, etc. And I think it's going to become even more relevant as we move into climate change and all the requirements for decarbonisation. And I think that's something that we're starting to look at new projects. We'll bring in, do we bring in electric vehicles? How do we reduce our carbon footprint through efficiencies in our operations? We had an example last year where we were looking at reducing fuel usage and carbons, and simple thing like reducing your haulage distance to a new mine dump site, and that added significant economic value, efficiencies, and decarbonisation benefits. So, all of that is part of our business, and it's nothing new. It's repackaged in ESG, but yeah, it is challenging. We've got a team that looks after it, and it's a constant part of every discussion through the operations.
Lyndon, I've got to ask you this question as well, because you've got your house and your car and your family possibly linked into the business itself. So you have to obviously make money. And you're obviously working in a poverty node in the Northern Cape as well. So how do you balance this?
Look, it's very, very difficult because obviously, our deposits are marginal, they're unpredictable, they're erratic, and you have a social labour plan that comes mining right that you have to perform to. And if I look at the Northern Cape and Northwest, and I look at all the small alluvial companies and their social labour plans, there's actually very little that has come from that. And we're going to government and we're saying, look, it doesn't work. Look, we are excellent at mining ultra-low-grade deposits, and we're excellent at creating jobs in these rural areas where unemployment is not 45%, it's 60 or 70%. That's what we're good at. We're not trained at being social upliftment. So we're not saying we don't want to do it, but we say let's find a different model of doing it. Let's say every producer pays 1 or 2% on their turnover into a fund, and that fund looks after the regions or the areas or the towns' social upliftment. And even out of that, we're saying if government can contribute an equal amount, we can use that as funding for new entrants into the business. Because, let's be honest, in the past 20 years, that I don't know of two previously disadvantaged entrants and owned mines in the alluvial space.
It's actually very interesting to see the dichotomy of views here when it's your own family and car and house, when it's shareholders' money. The last question which I would like to ask all the panelists, and we'll start with Pierre and we'll kind of go along here before we take questions from the floor, so if you could spend no more than a minute or so answering this. This is the junior Indaba. There is another Indaba later on in October, and we're all familiar with the mining Indaba in Cape Town. So the focus is obviously on juniors. So in your view, I have two questions, so 20 seconds apiece if you can. Why are there so few juniors in the region? Southern Africa, we'll call it. And what can we do to remedy it?
It is an interesting one, but I think we've got challenges in terms of costs going up. You know, it's difficult in a junior space to get economies of scale, get efficiencies. So to put a good project together, a small project, is a challenge. There's skill shortages. We find that a lot in this region. Capital is short for many commodities, but diamonds seem to have a very specific group of investors that you're dealing with. It's a much smaller group that you're looking at. So yeah, you end up internally funding it. It's a challenge. What can we do? I think marketing is important. So we market the diamonds, but the business of mining diamonds could probably be marketed better in the junior space. You know, obviously if you list it, there's all that going on. But in that junior space to market it better and make people understand that there are opportunities. You don't always start with a big fortune to make a little fortune. You know?
Thank you very much, Pierre. Richard?
I'm not getting lots of questions. Please carry on. Okay?
I see I've got 4 minutes on the clock.
You've got 4 minutes plus. Okay.
Okay, then you can relax a little bit, Richard. Thank you very much. Looks like, you know, come guys, ask Bernard some questions. Not the same 4 people from before lunch, please.
Yeah, look, I agree with Pierre. I think it applies to mining in general. Is at the lower end, junior side, access to capital is always difficult, and you know, your regulatory framework is not well suited to small junior startups. So I think there needs to be a deliberate focus on saying we're looking to encourage entry into the junior end, and to try and facilitate that both from a regulatory framework point of view, but also from a financing point of view. You know, it's not, certainly diamonds have a more challenging side to them, given the volatility and the like. But you know, generally on the junior mining, in the junior mining space, it's hard to get funding. So you end up having to go to sort of boutique niche financiers, and typically, you know, they take their pound of flesh and then some. So I think it's probably a combination of regulatory framework that is much more encouraging in terms of entering the junior space, and a financing package that is, you know, is also more suited to that and not quite as gouging as a lot of the available funding is for that particular end of the market.
Thank you, Richard. Brandon, you guys have had time to think about it now.
And they've taken all our answers. I've got to agree with both. I think there's got to be a concerted willingness, both regulatory and from the finance houses, to support junior diamond miners. I think the advertising of the industry and the good that it brings to regions, not only, you know, fingers get pointed at miners for destructing the environment, etc., but all the good that we do. You know, we build wetlands, we help the communities, you know, significantly within our areas, and I think those communities survive.
Okay, for the 12,
advertising that and bringing the good that comes out of that, along with, you know, all our ESG discussion we just had. Now, I think will drive a more positive view of diamond mining and assist, especially junior miners, where the first thing you got to do is you've got to find a good ore body that you can mine, and then the challenge starts. You know, setting it up efficiently and getting the funding for that. And I think intertwined in all of that is the regulatory restrictions that need to be ease to support these the juniors to get up and running.
Lyndon, how do you see it?
James, yeah, about
it's interesting.
18 months ago we asked the Aon Institute at the Nelson Mandela University to do a study for us to determine why the number of operators in the alluvial diamond mining space has decreased from about 2,000 in the year done by 2000 to about 220 now. So 80% decrease in the juniors over a 20-year period. Now they come up with 5 or 6 main reasons. I mean, obviously fuel price, lack of funding, everything. The main reason that stood out with everybody was cost of compliance. The cost to comply with the regulations in this country is too high. Now, we've gone to the press with this, we've sent it to all the DGs, we've sent it to the minister, to the president, to everybody, and that's 6 months ago. And to this day, I'm waiting for one government official to phone me to ask me, shit, you know, what's happening here? This industry is dying. You're creating jobs in all the rural towns in the Northern Cape and Northwest. You're earning foreign currency. What can we do to save you? That's a problem.
I do have time for a couple of minutes for extra questions, or there's some from you, Bernard? Or am I done?
Your questions will be better than mine, so go.
Okay, I wanted to follow up on one of the questions that came out, one of the myths yesterday. By the time that mining engineers are, I forget the date, in
20 years from now.
20 years from now,
All be unemployed.
the mining engineers, and let me broaden that to mining geologists and metallurgists, will all be unemployed. So would any member of the panel like to have a stab at that question, or that myth? In your view, will you still be running mines in 20 years' time? That's the question. In the region, will you still be running mines in 20 years' time in the region? Richard, you want to go ahead?
I'm happy to answer, absolutely. And if we're still running mines in the region that are diamond mines, we certainly will be running other mines producing other metals that the world needs. So I don't think mining engineers are an endangered species anytime soon, is my view.
I would agree. I mean, I've done a calculation. We've been mining diamonds for more than 100 years in South Africa.
Yeah.
We probably have another 100 years of alluvial resource left to mine. And that's just in South Africa. I mean, you still look at Namibia and all those places as well. But in South Africa, we've got another 100 years left of alluvial diamonds. So yes, for sure, we'll definitely be mining.
Now, isn't that optimistic and fantastic?
Has lab-created diamonds impacted your business, or is it expected to impact your business in future?
Who would like to take that one? Lab-impacted
I'm
diamonds
happy to.
impacted your business.
I'm happy to.
Richard?
Yeah, look, I mean, we members of the Natural Diamond Council, one of the founding members, and their focus obviously is in promoting natural diamonds over lab-grown. And our view is quite simple. There's space for both. They different segments of the market. Lab-grown diamonds provide an early entry. They're priced very differently to natural diamonds, and they don't have any of that rarity, uniqueness of a natural diamond. So Cullinan, for example, has diamonds that are billions of years old. You can't order a blue one or a white one or a pink one. You get what you get. And I think the key difference is for us is in continuing to highlight and differentiate ourselves in terms of the benefit we generate in naturally produced diamonds. We support communities, education, health. We can prove provenance. So a lab-grown, you order any color, any size to a point, and you can go and collect it. There's no benefit in terms of sustainability, in terms of communities and development of impoverished areas. So we're very comfortable with the two coexisting. I don't think either is going to eat each other's lunch. And it's a case of continuing to differentiate ourselves, which I think the Natural Diamond Council is doing a good job of.
Bernard, if I just add to that as well.
Of course you have to. Carry on.
A diamond is the ultimate store of love. Would you really buy something artificial and synthetic when you're at the start of a long-term relationship?
Are you talking to my wife online?
It's a shame she's not here.
Okay, cool stuff. Will you let me know on Monday what suits?
Off you go.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you.